Hello, personal productivity enthusiasts and community. Welcome to Anything But Idle, the Productivity News Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith.
And I'm Augusto Pinaud.
And we're your hosts for Anything But Idle. Today's episode is number 62, how to, basically, what have you been reading lately? And we are going to be talking about we're recording this on May 31st, 2020, so happy Memorial Day to those of you who are out there. And today we're going to be talking about the concept of what have you been reading lately, but then we're going to actually go into some discussion on how Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides are going to make you more productive. And so, of course, each week we read and review and discuss the productivity and technology news headlines of the week. And so just to kick it off, we like to have a little theme, a little pre-show, beginning show discussion. And I thought we would talk about what we have been reading lately, since it is, I believe it's, I forget what the month is, but there was like a month associated with today, and now I need to look it up because I can't remember. But there was a theme to why I chose this. It's like National something about reading month. And so, Augusto, what have you been reading? And it's National Get Caught Reading Month. That's what it was. And so, Augusto, you are a heavy reader as I am. What have you been reading lately?
Well, I need a lot more time to catch up than a month. But hey, who is counting? The book that I'm starting to read right now is called Your Next 5 Move: Master the Art of Business Strategy by Patrick Bet-David. It was recommended by a friend of mine, and I tend to get some of those recommendations and make the list. And someday maybe I will be lucky and cut off the list. Otherwise, it may never happen. Anyways, that's a book I am reading right now. And the book that came before that one was a book called, it was a book in Spanish that somebody recommended to me, but the translation is something like The Buddha in the Office is how they translate. And it was a really, really interesting book. And before that one, I read a book by Naz Beheshti, and I'm sure I'm butchering her last name. She was one of the personal assistants for the late Steve Jobs, and she wrote a book called Pause, Breathe, and Choose: Become the CEO of Your Well-Being. A really, really fantastic book. So those are the last 3 books that I have read.
For me, I have read recently, I'm actually still reading The Home Edit and The Home Edit Life, both by Clea Scherer and Joanna Teplin, the owners of The Home Edit. People know them from Instagram as well as from their Netflix television series. And so we are actually reading those books we're reading one of those books, The Home Edit, for Productivity Book Group. And so we're going to be meeting in a few weeks to talk about that book. And so I've just been reading my way through that. So that's been a lot of fun. And prior to that, I have been reading a biography of John D Rockefeller Sr. And so that's been really interesting to learn about what is in essence the wealthiest human, I'm presuming, in the United States or potentially in the world ever. And so I think in 2020, 2021 terms, he had like $436 billion or $400 billion in wealth by the time at his peak. And this is aside from his son, John D Rockefeller Jr., who most of you know is the person who developed Rockefeller Center. And so Rockefeller Sr. is the one who funded University of Chicago and Rockefeller University in New York City, and was just this, amazing oil steel magnate, but also then one of the greatest philanthropists, of all time. And so, yeah, it's just really fascinating book about someone of his stature. And yeah, and then I just finished reading a book called Clean by James Hamblind, MD. He's a doctor, but he's also a writer at The Atlantic, and he wrote all about really like the concept of cleanliness and what we think of as being clean, and just a very fascinating book. And I'm always fascinated by these health books that go into maybe a contrarian view, but really a deep dive into what we tend to think of as being normative and finding some bit of usefulness in all of that. So yeah, so that's what I've been reading lately. And with that, let us get into our stories of the week. And so this week, we're going to do our big tech, small tech first portion of the show. We'll do a break and come back after the break and do our other productivity articles. So, Augusto, let's kick it off with our first part of the headlines. What's our first story this week?
Well, Apple Music adding the lossless streaming to their entire catalog at no cost to people, and the spatial audio support with Dolby Atmos. And that news came before at the same time of the Google Week I/O show. That was the reason we didn't present it, but it was interesting. And of course, as soon as that happened, Amazon announced that their music in HD, they call it differently. They call it HD streaming at no extra cost. So basically, we all got all our music updated. And I come back to the question, as always, that the same question I have with the TV. We go to 4K, 6K, 8K. Great. Do our eyes can see the difference? There is some of us that cannot. And sadly, in the music, there is some of us that cannot.
Really, for true audiophiles, this will make very little difference. And I actually saw there was a test out there that would actually determine whether or not you would even notice the difference. There was a test out there somewhere. If I find a link to it, I'll put it in the show notes. But the idea here is that HD streaming or lossless streaming on the Apple Music side, most of those are not even going to be able to be heard because Bluetooth does not support that kind of HD or lossless streaming anyway. So you'd have to be wired into the device with a wire connected headset. And so this is for real true audiophiles. For the rest of us, we're not going to really see much of a difference. And but I mean, I think it's still good. I think we're at a place where those people in luxury and premium markets who have the bandwidth to be able to listen to higher fidelity music can now do so, which is all good. All right, next up.
Next is 1Password from the 1Password blog, and it comes with big changes. And one of the things is the adding of the biometric. And, they have been asked to add Touch ID, Windows Hello support, and they finally did it. If your 1Password is locked, you will be able. But they did it really well because they, quote unquote, said, no matter your favorite, Touch ID, Windows Hello, or biometrics on Linux, now you can enjoy it. So they really went all in. They also announced their dark mode and two-form authentication help, as well as a new way to see when you update your information, when you save your information, both. They have a new graphic interface. But the big deal is biometric is now into 1Password, regardless if you are on a Mac or an iOS or a Linux machine.
And this is in the browser?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing how the new save experience, because seeing all of the fields there is going to be a really nice experience in 1Password. So.
Yeah, this makes my 1Password, that is my favorite already, much, much powerful.
Fantastic. All right, next up, some Microsoft news.
Well, the rumor said that in June 2022, Microsoft will truly finally kill off the Internet Explorer. And there is a joke between people who work on different files, documents. This is the final, and this is how this news reads. Okay, it's the final. We are going to kill it in June 2022. So,
and this does not include long-term service channels. So those people who are in LTSC, they will continue to get Internet Explorer, 11 continuing on their platforms, and those are for high critical functioning things in healthcare and finance and whatever else. But it's so crazy how something like a browser can just continue to keep living on in this way. It's a zombie, and it just keeps living in this very weird way. But for most of us, 2022 will mark the end of Internet Explorer, and quite honestly, it's a good thing. I mean, really, it's going to thing. Yeah. The security holes in it and all the other kinds of problems with IE in terms of modern internet architecture. Really good that we have the end of IE. It was great, but its time has passed.
Internet Explorer is the Swiss cheese of the security world. There is no holes. It's just intended.
Yep. All right. Some Zoom news.
Oh, and I should have joined this show using my new toy. So the new iPads Pro has this feature, was announced with this feature called Center Stage. Basically, your iPad comes with an ultra wide lens and it follows you and zoom at it. So you can use zoom and this. So if you move, you are going to be in the center and the camera adjusts. And if new people come into the screen, it will adjust it. And it's really, really fun. It works right now on Zoom, works also into FaceTime calls, but it's really fun to see the people and how the lens recognize the people and adjust. But the news is Zoom will have it, and also they make change on the gallery view. Now you can have up to 48 videos in the gallery view. For people like me, that's way too much. We will not be able to recognize anybody. But for some people, that's awesome.
All right, continuing the Apple news, some Apple news about its updates for people with disabilities.
This is actually awesome. Came from the newsroom on May 19, and Apple began to preview some software updates designed for people with disabilities. One of them is you can now go to assigned time as a one-on-one sign language for shopping and support decisions. And I think I can not describe how awesome these news are, but also your watch now will have assistive touch. So you will be able, people who has limited mobility, it's going to be able to use the Apple Watch and the assistive touch to assist the users with limits to be able to touch the display, the controls using the built-in motion sensors. Dear friend of mine who can move his arm, and I cannot see the excitement on these kind of things coming to him and being able to do more things and to be able to use the eye tracking support for the iPad now that we have the center stage and more. So read the article if you can. If you have people in your life who have these disabilities and can't get the benefit, help them get them.
Well, the one that stood out most to me was the background sounds. So this is for people who are typically neurodiverse, and so people who are on that particular category of neurodiversity. And so this background sounds feature allows for masking unwanted environmental noise, and it can play different types of sounds like balanced bright or dark noise, as well as ocean, rain, or stream sounds continuously in the background. And even when noise from the system plays, whether that be audio or system sounds, it then adjusts those so one plays above the other. And I just think that could be really useful for those of us who are not in that space but still want some background noise to kind of limit our distraction. So I see some really good pieces here that can help neurotypical folks as well as neurodiverse folks, and very, very cool to see them adding these features into the system. All right, moving right along to some e-reader news.
So Kobo launched their Ellipsa. It's a 10.3 e-reader with a pen. So now you will be able to mark up files, take notes. This is still $400. It's not cheap. I still believe you will get more, with the iPad, but it's still, I love how these devices are coming. These note-taking devices, readers, are coming to the market. Ellipsa comes obviously to work with the Remarkable 2 or against the Remarkable 2 in that same range of devices. The device, really, I look at it and at least the information on the web. So it is really, really fascinating what they did. And it's a $400 device, but the pre-orders are open. We'll start shipping on June 24th, at least for the US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan and Europe. So everybody except Latin America, basically, but and Africa. But I think it's fantastic to start seeing more and more devices like this, where the center is a limited device to take your notes, to bring your notes, and all that.
Well, this is really exciting to me. So first and foremost, the Kobos have a feature that I don't think things like Remarkable 2 have, which is overdrive access. So now you're able to borrow books from the library and use the device to read articles you save on apps like Pocket, and you can now mark up, annotate those documents, PDFs or otherwise. It's a 10.3-inch display. It's a nice e-reader and all of those things. It comes in at $400, $399.99, but you get the Kobo stylus, you get the cover, and if you match that up with the Remarkable 2, the Remarkable 2 is $399, but you have to pay $49 for the marker at its starting price, right? Because there are like levels of the marker. And then if you want a case on top of that, you're going to spend more money and yada, yada, yada. And you don't have access to, that I know of, you don't have access to the library system like Overdrive. So this is, I mean, for the first time, I think about this kind of tablet as being actually really useful for me. I've been an ardent Kindle fan and user for many years, and I will probably still stay there, but it does appeal to me, the idea of being able to read and annotate live on the screen while I'm reading, because I am a heavy annotator of the books that I do read. So this is actually really interesting to me in that sense. If you want to spend $400 for the Remarkable 2 tablet, plus $49 plus for the marker, plus another $70 for the folio, that's the starting prices, you're still out $500 plus dollars, versus the Kobo, where you get all of that kind of caked in to one, with overdrive access and some really great capabilities there. So
right, and as
I'm excited.
No, I'm excited too. I think it was fantastic, and as I said again, I'm going to bring it up. If you get an iPad Mini, you can turn all the colors off using the accessibility features, and then no, it's not a new screen. It's still less than $400. You will get the pencil, you will get annotations, and all of that. So that's another possibility too. So our next news is the Google Docs now support placing images above and behind text. How is this took until 2021 to be announced? Do I need to ask that question, or
like Word 95? No, I think this is great. I think that it has been something that has been missing for a long time. You can now place images above text, and you can actually place images behind text. And I just think about all of the desktop layout opportunities that now are capable for those who are Google only. And now things like a book cover can be produced very easily in just the document itself, without you needing to be able to have a bunch of bespoke software. You can do that directly in the document itself, where before you had to do all the layout and then bring it into the document and hope it laid out exactly perfectly and blah blah blah. Now you just have it all built into the system. I'm very pleased with adding this new feature set into it. All right, we've got some Microsoft news now. So
our Microsoft Teams is going to be now available for personal use, and you are going to be able to use it all day for friends and family. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Microsoft Teams. I use it for certain things, but it's not my platform of choice. I understand that I probably use Google Meet over Zoom because it's what I have in the company. But Zoom may be probably the platform that I will prefer to use for these kind of things more even than Teams. But again, if you live on that Microsoft world and environment, this is an exciting news.
Yeah, and so one-on-one or one-to-one personal video calls are free. There's no limitations on duration or anything like that. And while we're in the COVID-19 pandemic, they have waived the fees, so you can host larger events. It says up to 300 people on Microsoft Teams. So you're getting pretty good parity between the features. Zoom obviously has greater limitations in that sense, and we're seeing more and more companies kind of sunsetting their COVID-19 free for all that they've been giving for some time, and now we're gonna get more and more paid options for these things. But Microsoft Teams, being new, is trying to get Microsoft Teams out there in the world, so giving it away for free gives people an opportunity to try it out. I think the experience could be better. And so until the experience is better on Microsoft Teams, certainly the size and weight of the application while you're trying to utilize it is still a little too heavy for most computers. And so if they can get the size down, I mean, think about how lightweight Zoom is to install on a machine, and they need to get the code down to that kind of level. And then I think we will see more people adopt Microsoft Teams, especially if they use Microsoft Teams at work. They're going to be more comfortable with using it at home. At the same time, I think people tend to want to use a different set of applications for their work meetings from their home meetings. So you probably will see some people, staying away from Microsoft Teams in that space. And I think otherwise, it's good to have options. And I'm glad that we have this additional option in our tool belt. And so with that, we've reached our halfway point in terms of our headlines this week. We're going to take a break, and then after the break, we're going to come back with our productivity article section. We're going to do new tools, and then we're going to cover our featured story this week. And so on with our ad from Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club, and we'll see you after the break.
While working in person may be normal for you, it's unlikely your coworkers are as interested in being productive as you are. Or working remotely or from home can be isolating, and there's something powerful about being with productive people, even virtually, that helps you be more engaged. If a flavor of these sounds familiar, Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club is for you. Co-working Space is a virtual work community designed to help members be more effective and efficient in their work and personal lives. At its core, we provide goal tracking and host focused action sessions throughout the week for accountability and camaraderie. Visit anythingbutidle.com/coworking to learn more. Co-working Space lives inside Personal Productivity Club, a digital community for personal productivity enthusiasts, so you can find people who use methods and tools you do too. Again, head over to anythingbutidle.com/coworking to see how Co-working Space can help you be more productive. And now, back to our show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Anything But Idle. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith, and I'm joined with Augusto Pinaud for the second half of our show. And so, Augusto, let's kick into our productivity articles headlines. What are the headlines that we have up? First up is an article that's basically back from 2017, but it just recently came across my radar, and it's Harvard Business Review. So I thought this is really good for us to actually bring back to the show.
Yeah, I think it was a fantastic jewel to bring. The busier you are, the more need of quiet time, and it came particularly in a good time. As I've been joking or not joking, that before the pandemic or during the pandemic, I start collecting tokens and then decide all these tokens start transforming into work that needs to get done. So I've been getting busier and busier, and I love this. I love, the interview, the article, and even the examples of the people who is looking and wired this deep silence. We tend to think on music, and one of the things that got my attention was there is a work from Duke Medical School that talks about that even the 2 minutes after you use that relaxation music tend to be more powerful than the music per se. And that was really interesting for me, and have the chance to test it before this into play more into that silence for the last couple of days. So it's been really interesting to play into the silence.
Yeah, I'm all about it. It gives 4 different suggestions, in essence, putting some time between meetings, finding some quiet time, finding silent time in nature. It talks about taking a 2 to 3 hour jaunt in nature. You don't need to take that amount of time. Just getting away and seeing greenery is actually very positive and helpful. And of course, nature sounds, what they call it, forest bathing, is a Japanese cultural practice, and forest bathing is very, very powerful and useful for being able to do this kind of quiet or rejuvenative activity. They also talk about going on a media fast. I'm not so sure I could do a day, but I could probably do several hours easily on a media fast, and then taking the plunge and doing a meditation retreat. And I highly recommend meditation retreats. They can be very useful for being able to learn, mindfulness practices and meditation techniques, and really being able to do some of this silent work that is really necessary when we're quiet. In that sense, our brains are highly active, and that's what allows us to be able to come up with innovative ideas and really do this kind of other thinking that we don't really think of as thinking. So, next up, 10 signs of a toxic workplace.
It was a good article, and I see so many environments into this toxic with different levels of toxicality, between 1 and 10. But the 10 they mention are poor communication, worker cliches and exclusion, employees gossips and rumors, inadequate leadership, unmotivated staff, slow professional growth, unreasonable demands, passion burnout, bad industry reputation, and the gut feeling. And I will have listed them first. The gut feeling, that's your first one to go by, in my honest opinion. But how do you protect from that is the second, is the question. How you can get really protect, and what happened when you are there. One of the good things is talking about mental health has been taboo for many years. I mean, we're finally seeing some breakthrough into that. And being part or keeping yourself into these toxic environments, really, it harms your health. So you need to identify what it is. And if you are there and you feel you cannot get out, what are you going to do to minimize or reduce the impact of that working space into your life?
Yeah, the article actually links to a monster.com article, Monster being the career site, and it has a section in that article called How to Detoxify Your Workplace, and it gives you 3 options: confront the toxic person one-to-one, confront with a team, and then plan your exit. And figuring out, if this toxic environment, the toxicity is just too high, how do you really get yourself out of the environment? So I thought the linked to article on monster.com was actually more useful than the article itself, because it gives these really clear, kind of heuristics for being able to understand how to get through this particular capacity, this, situation. So, all right, next up, a Leadership Freak blog post.
Yep. And our next is the title is the secret to manage. Come on, technology. The secret to managing your schedule isn't about your calendar. And as we said on the first article, the busier you are, the required time, you need those times. And yeah, we've seen that badge of honor of the triple booking, double booking. I see it in my clients consistently, where they're double booking, and some of them are finally coming to realize that it's not healthy, that there is no health into having your calendar triple book. And
on it, I'm not.
And having their calendar, those crazy schedules, really doesn't reflect that they have any kind of management skills. What they reflect is that they have a crazy life, and that they need really how they're going to manage their calendar better, so they can start putting boundaries, so you can really start working. You cannot manage time. Maybe called time management, but you cannot manage time. But the calendar is one of the tools where you can start putting boundaries so you can move forward.
Yeah, I think he gives some good points here. Mm-hmm. I think using arrogance as the you're arrogant if you're having these problems is probably the wrong stick. I think a carrot would be embracing humility, which is kind of his next step here in terms of expecting less of yourself in terms of how much you can do in any one particular amount of time gives you the opportunity to add more to your calendar and schedule should you get to the end of that list. And then it ends up being right matching the amount of work you can get done to the amount of time you have. And ultimately over time, what I found is that if I always put less on my calendar and add a little bit, then I can just add a little bit, and then on the whole, I'm going to get the same amount done. But if I tend to always feel like I'm not getting everything done that I plan to get done, then you need to shrink the number of things you put on the list at any. Am I back?
You're back.
All right, wonderful. And so the idea here is to. I'm supposed to be on a wired network, and for some reason, it is picking up on my wireless network. For some reason, I don't know what's going on there, but hopefully, we're good, and we'll continue going forward. Either way, my point was that. We have a tendency to put too much on our plate, and when we always feel like we're not getting enough done, what we need to do is scale back and get that little bit done. We can always add more. And what people tend to do is they try to add more and try and fit everything they can get done in a period, and then when they fail, they beat themselves up about it, and then that becomes a really vicious and I think abusive relationship with yourself. So why don't you just choose to do less? Do that less and add a little bit more, and then add a little bit more, and then add a little bit more. I think that's the right way to go through this, or at least one effective way of going through this particular scenario. All right, next up.
So I disagree mostly with our next article. Came from Forbes. Study shows people working from home are having sex, dating, taking naps, and doing side hustle on company time. Number one, people were doing that before the pandemic. So this has nothing to do with working from home. And some of the things people is doing online shopping. Come on, people were doing online shopping, again, before working from home. So if the goal of the article was to put that people do personal things during work time, I may agree, but I think has no relationship with working from home. So
I'm going to pair this with the other article, which is the WeWork CEO coming out and saying, people who are disengaged from work are the people who are wanting to stay working from home. Really think about where the money flows and why he's made the decision to say something like this. He also, when you get into the article, the headline is a little bit different than the article, but both of these things are absolutely kind of they're maligning in two different ways. One is that people working from home doing things that should be considered normal human activities, sex, dating, taking naps, and doing side businesses, that is just a normal culture today that some contributor to Forbes thinks that he is in touch with the world and seems to be out of touch with it. No offense, but he seems to be out of touch with the world if he doesn't think that people weren't doing that when they were working at the office as much as when they were doing it from a work from home environment. WeWork situation is a little bit more nefarious. Not nefarious, but I mean, the WeWork CEO's job is to bring people into WeWork spaces. Mm-hmm. So his interest is there. And this is Sandeep Mathrani, who replaced the former CEO and founder, Adam Newman, back in 2020. And what he's basically saying is that people want to go into work 2 or 3 days out of the week. These are the people who are quote unquote overly engaged. And again, these are terms that I feel like are somewhat misrepresentative, maybe even derogatory in statement. Like, why would you say someone is overly engaged in their work? That sounds to me like they're busybodies, or they're people who are power grabbers, or those kinds of things. When in reality, we either have people who are highly engaged, or disengaged. The reality is that the amount people want to go into an office or not probably has very little to do with engagement, and has very much to do with their own personal life circumstances. And yeah, I didn't find a lot of value in their perspectives other than this, which is that there is clearly a bloc who does not want employees to have agency over where they work. Mm-hmm. And for those people who do want to have that agency and want to be able to work from anywhere, then they are up against that block. And that's something that we all have to take into account.
Yep. I'm going to move to the next article because I want to keep this show clean, not explicit. So the next article is an interview with one of the directors of Literature and Latte. Literature and Latte produced 2 pieces of software. One is a Scrivener that I love with passion, and the other one is Scalpel. And Scalpel obviously is, as they call it, an infinite canvas for your thoughts, and allows you to connect ideas, to create. It's really a thinking platform. It is incredible. And if you have never used it, now that it's coming into the Obsidian and where we are going to keep all this information in a more graphical way, Scalpel may be one of those places that you may want to look and see if it's something that fit your work style. If you have never played with it, it is really awesome.
Yeah, I had no idea this existed. I'm so glad you brought this to my attention. This is really great. There used to be, I think it was called Corkboard, but there used to be an application that was developed, and it was the same. It was this infinite canvas, and you could put notes on it, and you could just keep doing that. And this reminds me of some mind mapping software that allow you to be able to do this kind of thing. But Scalpel looks like it's a little bit more robust and a little bit more expansive in its capabilities there, and very exciting to see. And so, yeah, if you didn't know about Scalpel, I highly recommend reading the interview, because Julia Pierce, the director at Scalpel, really goes into depth in terms of the background behind it, and really what it is and how it can help you if you're looking for this kind of space where you can think out loud is maybe the one way to say it, but thinking visually out loud in this space and then organizing those thoughts. So very, very cool in that sense. All right. Well, we have reached that time where we do new tools of the week. And so every week, Augusto and I scour the interwebs for all of the various personal productivity and technology topics that we cover here, the articles and the news articles and the productivity articles that we bring every week. And so in new tools of the week, we come across these various tools, products, services, otherwise, that we bring you, and we hope you might like one of them. And so this week, we have 2 tools, one from each of us. And the first one is one that I just thought was kind of not in the literature space, but in the culture space. Since we were talking about what we were reading, I wanted to kind of bring to the fore the reality that we have so much to offer in the space of culture that doesn't necessarily have to be reading. And so my tool is Google Cultural Art Institute. And for those of you who are aware of it, you know the value of it. But for those of you who don't, Google's Cultural Institute is a mobile application on both iOS and Android, and it gives you access to 2,000 museums, art galleries, and other cultural institutions through the app. And so what you can do is you download the application, and then you can go into the Google Arts and Culture space, into the Culture Institute, and you can navigate the artwork through navigating the halls of these various institutes. And so you can zoom into the artwork. I mean, into fine detail. Like if you were putting your nose up to the artwork, the images are that detailed. And so you can see all of this artwork without having to go anywhere. You can do 360-degree tours. It gives you some really great ability to be able to do, 360 tours. You can take selfies. You can take these art selfies, which allow you to basically, use the famous artwork and put yourself into them. Like some really interesting things. They have pre-built tours that you can look at. Just some really, really interesting stuff here. You can do augmented reality. You can see what museums are nearby. Just there's a whole lot here in the Google Arts and Culture app, and just lots of stuff there. So I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. If you have kids, or if you're just looking to get out and feel a little bit claustrophobic and you want to spend some time, this is a great way to do that. Maybe using a larger mobile device like a tablet to be able to peruse and do that kind of thing. If you have a headset that allows you to use the 360-degree technology and all that other fun stuff, I highly recommend it as well. So Google Cultural Institute, and you can get to it from the link in the show notes, because it's a little bit of a long link there. All right, Augusto, what is your tool this week?
Well, it's called Dark Noise, and I also went into the reading. I have 2 kids, I have a dog, so reading is not always quiet. Okay, sometimes there is no dark noise.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Is there a link in the?
Yes.
Oh,
Dark noise.
There you go. Okay, I will fix that in a moment, everybody.
Perfect. And I love to read, but not all the time I have the appropriate conditions. Okay, my kids watch TV; they're loud, and so I use this app called Dark Noise. It has many options that you can do. White noise, you can redefine it. You can do, coffee shop, that doesn't work, but you can do the beach, and you can do many things, the mountain, and it's a fantastic application. I use it in my app. When you can favorite the noises that you like, so you can only see, your favorites. But I have discovered that it's a great reading complement, especially when I'm distracted. So I put the white noise, and then I can read and enjoy my reading.
Fantastic. Very cool. So darknoise.app. All right, Augusto, on to our story of the week. Today, we're going to be talking about how Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides can help you be more productive. And so tell us what's going on over at Google.
Well, you finally can, or you can now, okay? The article says you quickly present Google Docs, Sheets, and a slide on ongoing meeting calls. And the sharing has always worked, okay? And it works. I believe there is nothing better than sharing a Google Sheets or a Google Docs, okay? The sharing is incredible. But sometimes happen on the meetings that you want to present it, and that is not as smooth. So finally, now you will be able to do that from the Google Meet directly and present it in the document, add it to the meeting so they can go, or even create the document and the meeting, create the meeting directly from the document. So it is interesting to look into what Google has done in the last 12 months with Google Workspace. I didn't understand it. Maybe I didn't have the inside knowledge. So what was coming when they rename and rebrand and all that, but we are now starting to see on the consumer end what really, or how robust they're trying really to make Google Sheets, Google Page, and integrate it really into one platform in a really, really powerful way. So I am really excited to see what else will come out of this to really be a contender to Microsoft.
I think they are, and they're just, some of these features are just, they seem so subtle, but they are just huge hidden drivers of productivity. And so just the idea of having that new present button in Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides, being able to press on a button and if you have a meeting, immediately share that document, and now people are drawn into the document, or you're capable of inviting them to a meeting where the document becomes a centerpiece of what you're discussing. It allows them to go ahead and do real-time collaboration and real-time editing, all of that stuff right directly inside of the document you're working on, whether that be Docs, Sheets, or Slides. This is some very, very sophisticated technology, and I'm glad to see them bring it together instead of having to go ahead and sharing screens and, oh gosh, which of my monitors do I need to share, and all of those kinds of kerfuffles that happen as you're trying to present effectively and cleanly. This just kind of helps it all go very, very smoothly. And especially when you're presenting, say you have the CEO and you're trying to present material to the CEO, that can sometimes be a little bit harebrained. And the idea here is that now you have an inbuilt feature for being able to show, say, slides or other things, and he or she can now dive into the document and provide feedback in real time while the presentation's going, saves everybody time and energy for all kinds of projects. So I'm really excited about what Google Workspace has been doing and bringing those features to the Google consumer market products as well. That is the public-facing, consumer-facing Google Docs, Google Sheets, Slides, Google Drive, and otherwise. I see a lot of opportunity there. And somebody who helps and deals with Google Workspace implementations with small business all the time, I'm always excited to see more and more of what Google Workspace is doing for people in that sense.
Yes,
so
same here.
all good there. Any announcements, Augusto?
Yes. On June 9, I will be joining Jeff Siegel in the Personal Productivity Club for an event called What Can I Gain? And we are looking this question from the health and fitness as well as the productivity perspective. We are going to be doing one guided meditation with a word and one journaling exercise. So if you want, you can join Personal Productivity Club. It's free to join, and you can just sign up for the event. The event is free, and come and join us.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to the event. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody arriving and joining us for it. Always good to get some. I just really fundamentally believe that our biology is so tightly bound up in our ability to be productive. And so we have, in Personal Productivity Club, been trying to organize a few health-related, health-focused events. And I think having Jeff Siegel, who's been here on the show before, do this event, I think is going to be really great. So looking forward to that, Augusto. All right, that brings us to the close of this show. We've covered all the personal productivity and technology news that we can fit into this week. But of course, we have additional extra stories in our show notes. So any stories we couldn't cover are there. But of course, thank you, Augusto Pinaud, for joining me this and every week on Anything But Idle.
Thank you very much. See you guys next week.
If there is a story that we did miss and that's not in the extra stories section, feel free to go on to anythingbutidle.com/062, which is the episode number for this particular episode, but it'll take you to the episode page. This will, of course, take you over to the page. You'll be able to comment or question directly on the page. You can also tweet or DM us on Twitter at Anything But Idle, and feel free to head over there to tweet at us or comment on the show. While you're on anythingbutidle.com/062, which is the episode page again, you'll find our show notes. They'll have links to all the stories we covered, tools, the new tools of the week, those extra stories that we didn't cover, and it also has text transcripts, both in a reading format, so you just click on that read more link and it'll expand it so you can read while you're listening or watching along, or you can go ahead and download from the link below that. That download link will download a PDF for you to be able to take offline. And so if this is your first time watching, feel free to subscribe and click the thumbs up icon. That helps us to let other folks know to join the show as well. And it helps expand our personal productivity community. So thank you for doing that. If you're listening to the podcast afterward, you can go ahead and subscribe if you already don't. Follow or subscribe. Either one will automatically add us to your podcast app of choice and be notified when new shows come up. So feel free to do that. And thank you all for joining us for this Anything But Idle. With that, we'll see you all next time on Anything But Idle. Here's to your productive life.